What's going on, Arc Junkies? Happy Friday, and welcome to a special bonus episode of the Arc Junkies Podcast. While I was at FabTech, I had the opportunity to sit down and chat with the folks at FRONIUS USA. FRONIUS just celebrated their 20th year anniversary stateside, which is no easy feat. As most of you know, here in the US, we only have a few different welding equipment manufacturers that pretty much dominate our industry. Well, FRONIUS is doing their best to compete over here, and they're doing a damn good job at it. They have some really cool technology and different waveforms that provide a severe competitive advantage, especially when it comes to things like aluminum welding and stainless welding, as well as automation and aerospace. We're going to go ahead and get right into it, so fire up your machine, drop your hood, and turn me up 5.
Listening to the Arc Junkies Podcast, helping you make every weld better than your last with each episode. And now your host, Jason Becker.
All right, so joining me is France with FRONIUS USA. So you started FRONIUS USA 20 years ago.
That's right, yes. So actually, I work now in the headquarters in Europe, but 2002 we started our operation, or let's say our small office in Brighton in Michigan. Yeah.
Okay.
And this is actually 20 years ago, and we have this week we have our anniversary. Yeah.
Congratulations on 20 years in the U.S. So what was it like bringing a European welding equipment over to the United States? I mean, how did you break into that market?
I have to tell you that the main reason why we did this was the year 1998. We launched a fully new product line, and this was the digital revolution. So the first fully digitized welding equipment, so MIG welding machines fully digitized, and we had long discussions how we should enter the American market, because none of our competitors, European competitors, have ever been successful in America, and so the European companies have high respect for the American market, but the technology was so outstanding that we started a small project to open a sales and service office in the States and not selling via distributors. Yeah.
Okay, so I would imagine that'd be like a kind of a tough task ahead of you, because Americans, I don't know if you probably noticed, we're a little stubborn, and especially welders, we're set in our ways.
Yeah.
So we've got specific machines or specific equipments, and that's it. Red till I'm dead, and blue all through and through. And
no, we totally underestimated the American market. We totally underestimated the culture. So we thought we are in Europe a market leader. We just opened the office and start the business here, and it was totally different. The first year, I never forget, I had sleepless nights because we sold more or less nothing. The customers came along, the possible customers came along and said, "Who are you? Are you a Chinese company, or are you from Asia somewhere?" "No, it's Austria." "Austria? And why do you think you can sell arc welding machines over here?" It was really tough. The first 2 years, I never forget in my life, because I thought we will close down quite soon. But we got suddenly, account by account, and we went direct. Yeah, distribution was immediately over, but then we went direct, and then we found customers.
So you went direct to the end user?
Yes, because distribution ignored us completely. They said, "No way."
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
No. And then we started to go direct to customers, and mainly to automotive customers. So, for instance, one of our first customers was General Motors in Flint, and they had aluminum welding issues, and we were welding these days the Audi A8 in Europe. So the automotive industries, they did know Fronius was aluminum welding. And so phone call, they said, please come. And this was the start of the first account. But it was a hard work.
So how did you continue to grow after that? So you got your first break with General Motors, which is huge, by the way.
Yeah.
Did you go after additional automobile manufacturers, or?
No. We as soon as we had a reference, we got to Benteler. We had the chance to go to Ford, Chrysler. First, our target was the large OEMs, just to get our name out there. And I remember a project, the GT40, a long time ago, was a Ford race car, and was welded with aluminum, but one of our competitors. And we did not get the deal, but it was, for me, it made me very proud, because we went there with our engineers, and as soon as we showed up, the half R&D department from Ohio came and fixed their problems, because they were so scared about a company with 6 people in Michigan.
Yeah, I would imagine they'd be a little bit apprehensive.
Yeah.
It's like, you got a brand new machine, there's only 6 people in your company, you just got here, why should we buy from you?
Yeah, and it was so much, we were proud. We looked at the welding issues they had, and we were sure that we can fix the problems, but then they came with their half R&D, and oh no, we will not give up this prestige project to a company from Austria. But the doors were open, and Ford was now aware. Who are we? And then it started. Yeah, and after 3 years, we got good business. And then I was here for 7 years, and we could grow the company. When I left, we were 50 people, and now we are nearly 100 people here. Yeah.
In the U.S.?
Yes.
You guys support the entire Fronius U.S. line with 100 people.
Yeah.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, we keep growing. I estimate, and Jason will talk about this later, we are growing rapidly, because now we understand the market, the products are adapted to the US, US requirements, the machines now speak proper American English, which was a problem at the beginning.
Yeah, we're big on inches and feet.
Imperial versus metric.
Exactly.
When I was here,
we love our imperial system.
Yeah. And the Arc, the Arc is now also adapted to the American requirements. So now nothing can stop us.
So it's a lot easier to compete in this market now.
Yeah.
And then you guys have a lot of different processes or modes of metal transfer that some of the other OEMs, like Miller and Lincoln, they don't have.
Yeah, yes, you're right. We have developed, of course, some outstanding technology like the cold metal transfer or laser hybrid. So, and you are right. These technologies, they did help us a lot to get awareness from the big automotive companies. They said, the Fronius people. And of course, the references did grow, because in Germany we are a supplier of the big automotive companies, and they said, General Motors called, they said, we want to learn from you what you're doing in Europe. We would learn from you how we could support, how we can support them. And then, it was a really challenging time.
Do you think that was like your biggest advantage into breaking into the automobile market, was that because you had so much technology in your machines?
Yes. It took a long time, because also the American workers and welders were very reluctant, because they are used to the blue and the red by other machines, and then we come along and who's this guy, Fronius. But when they saw the Arc, and that was the point, when they saw the Arc, then we convinced them. Yeah? Immediately they saw, it's a simple machine, the Arc is outstanding, and then we got the business.
Yeah, the proof's in the pudding.
And one thing was very important, it sounds strange, but sales was never a problem. Service and support. So we needed to hire quickly sales and service and application engineers, welding engineers to support our systems. Yeah?
So you guys have beefed up that area, I assume?
Yeah.
The support?
Yeah. I remember, sales guys, I think I had only 1 or 2. But application engineers, we hired more and more, and especially from Ferry State University, because we were looking for people who can program a robot, plus can weld. And then, we got more and more people, and and I can say we have now really one of the best application and welding engineers in the States. They're working for Fronius. Really, I would say that. Yeah?
That's one of the things, especially when it comes to automation. It's a lot easier to take somebody that knows how to weld and teach them to program versus finding somebody that can program and say, hey, go out there to the shop and run that welding robot. They'd be lost at that point.
Yeah, I know. And for us, the biggest advantage was also that the material change in the US from plain steel welding to, for instance, aluminum welding. So we are known in the States of the experts for aluminum, and this helped us also a lot. That the people called us and said, "Hey, please come help us here." Yeah, and if I look now at the company, I'm now 20 years. I'm now 13 years back in Europe. I'm very, very proud what I see here.
I wouldn't blame you. Yeah. So what other markets did you, so after you got into like the automobile manufacturing, what other companies did you kind of break into that was like a big step for Fronius?
Yeah, it's for instance, pipeline welding. So one of the largest accounts was in Texas, and this company are doing pipeline weldings, and they saw our equipment, and for tandem welding is twin wire, and they were very impressed about this, and we started a project with them, and they bought from us in 5 years more than 3,000 arc welding machines in Texas.
Wow.
Yeah. This was actually for me was the biggest account during this period. Yeah.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
So they're using that a lot. I would imagine the shops for like prefabrication.
No, this was a company. They are renting pipeline welding systems, so orbital welding systems, to global customers, and they weld complete pipelines. Yeah.
Oh wow.
And they're out of Texas, and they're also in Europe and in other areas. And this was the next big, and that was also direct business. Yeah. So no distribution. We went direct to this customer and could develop this relationship.
Now, what do you think the biggest difference between how they do things in Europe, like the market share in Europe, and then the market share in U.S. as far as like your equipment's concerned? Like it's a lot easier to compete for you in Europe because Europe has so many different. There's like 40 different welding manufacturers over there, equipment manufacturers. Over here, there's only 2. Why do you think that is?
As I said before, 2002, or let's say earlier, before this year, before 2000, for us it was clear we cannot enter the US market because it's dominated by, in this case it was Miller, Lincoln and ASAP, Thermodynam also these days. It makes no sense. And no European manufacturer ever tried to enter the US market, so we had a very high respect. So, but there are also different mains voltage standards, norms, and so nobody was really had the power to enter this market. But then when we launched these new digital machines, we thought, why not trying it,
Yeah. Why not give it a shot? Now, do you guys do anything as far as engine drives at all?
No.
Is that in the near future? Are you guys planning on doing any engine drive development? No.
No. We stick to what we are doing best, and this is this digital power supplies. So MIG welding is what we are doing. Laser welding, plasma welding, TIG welding. Stick welding is also a process which we support, but
it's not a big share.
No, our main focus is really MIG welding.
Okay.
And all type of MIG welding. Yeah.
I got you. But specializing in aluminum and stainless as well?
Yes. Yeah. So no engine drives, nothing.
Okay.
We see a big future in automation. Yeah. So we have developed over the years great interfaces with the robot manufacturers in the US and also globally. And here we see a big.
Yeah, I was chatting with Chris Bliven a while back about the automation. Like I didn't realize how. I'm not huge into automation yet, but I know it's not coming. It's here, and it's only going to get bigger. Yeah. But I didn't realize how much you all did with automation.
Yeah. For us, automation, we are a supplier of welding equipment for robotic companies. So this is one thing that we do. We develop robotic packages and supply this to system integrators or to robot companies. We are one of the largest in the world, actually, because we are selling between 6,500 and 7,000 robotic packages worldwide. So this is a very high number. And then we have also a small automation department, and here we develop hard automation and robot cells. But this is only in Europe. In the US, we have started now this in Texas.
What's your biggest industry when it comes to automation? Is it like automobile manufacturing, or is it something else?
Automation, so if I look to our system integration department, it is not automotive, because here we work with large system integrators. But this industry is oil and gas industry, general industry, but not automotive.
Okay.
And for the standard robotic packages, it's automotive.
Okay. So now, what do you think? What's the goals for the next 20 years? You guys just hit your 20-year birthday over here, stateside. Where do you see Fronius in the next 20 years?
In the US or
in the
global?
US.
Of course, I think our market share in the US is around 6%, 6 till 7%. So we want to grow this market share beyond 15% at least. Yeah? Probably more is possible, but I guess this is our target here. We want to be at least number 2 in the States.
Well, you got to aim higher.
We do not, if I look to the others, they have a different product line, and we do not focus on many of these, like you said, the engine-driven or submerged arc welding. We're not doing this.
Okay.
So we have a limited product range, and that's it.
Kind of get like a niche area. You want to stay in your own lane.
And you need to make also profit, and with this niche, let's say, we are really in a very good segment. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So.
Well, wish you guys luck over the next 20 years.
Thank you.
It's been great chatting with you here. I think we got somebody from for automation coming up next.
Okay.
All
Thank you very much for your time,
Thank you,
Jason.
All right, joining me now is Jeff Hofert with Fronius. You do a lot with the Fronius automation, which I was just talking to France about. Tell me a little bit about what makes Fronius automation different, and than some of the other companies that are out there.
Yeah, that's a great question. One of the major differences is that we do everything vertically designed, vertically manufactured. So when a client comes to us, we can handle the whole package for them. So when it's installed, we do all the service work, all the support for them.
Okay, so like when you say vertical, for folks that don't know, you've got like vertical integration, horizontal integration. So instead of adapting or adopting other people's parts and components, you guys are doing everything from the ground up internally.
That is absolutely correct.
Now, do you see automation becoming a lot more popular stateside in our current industry?
Yeah, it's been interesting. With the baby boomers all retiring, they're not being backfilled.
Yep.
So one of the common things I hear from clients that come into the booth here at the show is we can't find labor. We have to automate in some way. And so I see it actually intensifying. It really started picking up after the pandemic. That's when I really noticed it. It's always been there to some degree, but the strength of that has intensified greatly.
Yeah, I want to say it was FabTech Atlanta 2016 when I was out here. There was like one cobot on the floor.
Yep.
And now when you walk the show here in 2022, it seems like every other booth out here on the floor has some sort of automation, whether it's welding or grinding or any other parts handling or any of that. Automation's everywhere.
You're absolutely
it's becoming
correct.
a lot more prevalent.
Yep. It's only going to get stronger, I think, in the future too.
Well, yeah, and then so talk to me about that, because a lot of people are like, well, why would I want to get into welding? Why would I want to get into manufacturing? It's just I'm going to be replaced by a robot. That's one of the biggest fears that I hear from people is like they're coming to take our jobs, which is simply not the case.
No, it's not. Absolutely not. Yeah. What we're trying to do is take the welders and make them more productive, number one. Number two, make the environment more friendly. Instead of being underneath the hood and having to have the eye to torch, eye to hand coordination, now they can work with a pendant and pull up the different programs and make the job actually much more enjoyable and much more productive, and allow them to make more compensation in the process.
Now, how user-friendly are your machines as compared, for somebody that has never done robotic programming or anything like that? Like, how user-intuitive, how easy is it to learn that whole setup?
Yeah, it's generally speaking, it depends on which particular machine we're talking about, but you're talking between 3 days and maybe as much as 2 weeks. But again, a very short period of time to get a welder. Okay, that this is how I like to say it. If the welder is familiar with a smartphone, okay, that we can get him where he needs to be at within a reasonable period of time.
I can tell you right now, as teaching welding for the past 6 years, that all the welders out there, they're very familiar with a smartphone. Too familiar. Not as much familiar with the welding machine as they are with the smartphone.
That's true.
So what are some of the stuff that you're demonstrating or have on display out here at FabTech today?
Well, we have one of our robotic cells over there behind you has the TPSI technology, which has the CMT process.
Cold metal transfer?
Cold metal transfer. That process is really ideally suited for robotic applications because we can do so many different type of variations with it. So that's one. Right along with that, we have the dynamic wire that you've probably seen earlier.
It's actually on the screen right behind you. I was just checking that out.
Ah, wonderful. So that is used also in a mechanized state. We've also showing our collaborative robot, or Cobalt. Ours is kind of unique in the sense that our Cobalt you can use in a collaborative teaching mode, but you can also use it as a conventional programmable robot also. So it's one and the same.
Now, what are some of the benefits of the new Cobalt systems?
The new Cobalt systems, again, focusing on the welder. We can take a welder and he can actually grab the torch in the Cobalt mechanism and take it and do point to point, and he can program it himself. So that makes it extremely friendly and easy to operate for the welding operator. And after he's got his program, if he wants to make it into a full robot, he can do that.
That was one of my biggest hang-ups when I started getting into learning how to program a robot, which I'm still not all that great with it. But back in the day, I was like, why can't I just grab the head of this thing and move it and say, that's where I want it to start, and then move it down the line and say, that's where I want it to stop, go.
Yep, that's right. And that's exactly what you can do.
Mm-hmm. It was like 4 or 5 short years ago, I was complaining about that. Boom, now we have that technology.
Right. And then if you tie that to our wire sense system, where if that part is not exactly where you said it was, it goes up and touches it, and then we can relocate where that part is at and start the program again.
Now, how far away from where the start point is intended to be? How far can you be off?
Yeah, you can't be off. You're within 3/4 of an inch or something like that.
That's still pretty impressive.
Yeah.
And then it's got like a seam tracking software to be able to stay in the weld and understand the joint geometry?
No, with the Cobalt it's not. Now, that option's available on other type systems, yes.
Oh, very cool. So what are some of the benefits of using automation? I mean, obviously it's less labor intensive for the end user, but what about production? How much faster in production can cobots and robots help for different manufacturers to get parts out? Because we all know right now there's supply chain issues on everything, so everybody's behind on building and manufacturing. Can we get caught up with automation?
I think automation can do 2 things for our client. Number one, it can increase his quality because you're consistently using the same welding parameters time and time again. Number 2, you can increase the throughput of a given operator. Your question was how much. That's going to vary depending upon the welding process and the application. But generally speaking, conservatively, twice. And, I finished a project not too long ago, and we used the same operators and over 5 times the amount of production with the same number of operators.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Now, how many well, actually, I got one other question for you before we get into that.
Okay.
How fast can these things actually go?
That's a great question, too.
Maybe not for a practical application, but how fast can we lay a weld down with one of these things, a suitable weld?
All right. So if we're using conventional welding, arc welding, and if we use a twin MIG setup, you can comfortably go between 60 and 80 inches a minute travel speed.
Holy crap.
Yeah. And if we do something we call hybrid laser welding, then we can go 150, 200 inches a minute.
Jeez.
Yeah, you're smoking.
What are the now? Are there any practical applications to run that fast?
Oh,
like maybe like
absolutely.
Really?
Absolutely. Think about
Okay.
it.
I was just thinking like the guy in the shop be like, hey, how fast do you think we can get this to go?
No. Okay. Think about all your light poles. Okay, they're straight line runs, right? So it's just how fast can you get that pole done. The nice thing about laser is there's no bowing because the heat input's so small, you don't have to bend it again into shape. Another application, propane tanks. You know, I was shocked. They make hundreds of thousands of propane tanks every year. You'd think a market would eventually get saturated, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
But they don't. And we're running those, some of those that we're running at 60 inches a minute, 2 and 3 times faster than what they've done in the past. Air tanks, like for muffler shops, tire shops, likewise, we're running in the 60 and 70 inches of range.
Damn. That's quick.
Yep. And excellent quality along with that.
Now, what other? So we talked a little bit about like the MIG process. You can also run automated TIG now too. You can put TIG torch on a robot.
Yes.
For gas tungsten.
We can use TIG or plasma, and then we can also do wire assist with each one of those processes also.
Oh wow! So I've never seen plasma done, but you do plasma and like with a wire fed application.
Yes, we can use plasma keyhole, create the keyhole, and then energize the wire to feed it. So, for an example, a lot of plasma keyhole is autogenous. So we punch through, but sometimes a client wants a little bit of reinforcement.
Right.
Okay. So that's when we'd add the wire to it.
That's pretty good. Do you have that set up here today? I'd like to check that out.
I only have it on videos. I don't have it live.
We might have to check that video out. I'd like to see that. That's one thing I've never done is plasma. I've done stick, MIG, TIG, flux core. I've never done any plasma applications.
Well, you see all those big spaceships that are being blasted off here lately?
Yeah.
That's plasma welded.
They're all plasma. Okay, so like all your SpaceXs, your NASAs, your Blue Origins, those different companies.
Yeah, different companies like that would use a plasma type process.
Okay, so you guys tapping, because I was just speaking to Franz and he was talking about automobiles and all that. Are you guys in, petrochemical and all that down in Texas? Are you guys also migrating into aerospace now that that's becoming a huge market?
That's a great question too. So in Houston, we started our automation division there because back 5 years ago, 6 years ago, we were 90% oil and gas in the automation arena. And during that period of time, we flipped it. Now we're 10% oil and gas, 90% in other industries.
Oh, wow. Now, what percentage would you say aerospace is for that?
Today, I would say probably in the 35 to 50% range, that high.
That's a good chunk. I just did a Kennedy Space Center tour with my daughter last week. So and then I was speaking to. We had an event last night, and Fronius was there too. They were one of the co-sponsors. But I met 3 of the engineers from SpaceX.
Yep.
And they were talking that they're going to start sending up 2 rockets per week in 2023 between California and Florida. They're launching 2 rockets per week for the entire year.
Did they tell you where they're going to launch those rockets from?
I'm hoping. Well, I think they're going back and forth. One of them, I think they're doing some over at Cape Canaveral. There's 2 different launch pads out there.
Some in the Cape and some down in South Texas called Boca.
That's it. It's fantastic. So what are some of the other stuff that you guys kind of that's new this year with Fronius, and then where do you think you're going? Like in the next 5 years.
I think what you're going to see is, more of the artificial intelligence to make the programming of robotic cells easier. That's got to be. We cannot have, degreed engineers programming all this stuff. It's just not a practical solution. So I see that. Number 2, I think more on welding speed and welding quality. I think you're going to see a lot more laser being adapted along with conventional welding. So right now, we use the MIG process. We actually shoot the laser beam 5,000, 10,000 watts into the plume of that. And I think you're going to see a lot more of that also.
Yeah, I see laser, especially like if you scroll through Instagram and like all the different social media platforms, you see laser welding everywhere. So it's got like I think laser welding is kind of where cobots were and automation was like 5 years ago, but it's getting ready. I think it'll take off at a much faster rate.
Yep, I think so too. Absolutely.
Now, do you guys do laser cutting as well as laser welding, or you just kind of stick to the welding arena?
We're strictly welding.
Okay. Yeah, I've noticed. I've seen a lot of different companies that are they're switching from CNC plasma over to laser because it's faster, it's more accurate. There's a lot less dross, a lot less cleanup, and all that.
Yep, absolutely.
Well, that's really cool. Is there anything else that you kind of want to mention before we take off here?
No, I mean I've been in the industry now 40 years, and it's amazing to see the change. About every 10 years, you see a significant change in the technology. And I see that only increase in the years to come.
Yeah, I'm just hoping that manufacturing and all the employers that are out there, they start catching on just as fast, with the newer technology, because I think a lot of them are kind of, they're footholding themselves by not embracing and adapting this new technology because they're afraid of it.
I agree wholeheartedly.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate your time, man. It's been awesome chatting with you.
All right, thank you much.
Thank you, sir.
Bye.
All right, so joining me now is none other than Dabs Wellington. What's up, bud?
Wrapping up this Wednesday. I'll be leaving this afternoon, but it's been a hell of a week. It seems that the attendance is back from where it was last year.
Oh, tenfold.
Yeah.
Tenfold.
FabTech is definitely back. It's been great to see everyone again. I'm just having a blast.
Yeah, so tell me, what are you doing here in the Fronius booth?
The Fronius booth today, I will be demoing the dynamic wire system on the iWave machine. So that will start as soon as the podcast is over at 2 o'clock here. I've had about a half an hour's experience with it, and I'm absolutely comfortable demoing it in front of a large crowd. It is a seamless system that is going to be very user-friendly.
So tell me a little bit about this system for folks that don't know, because it's brand new, and if you haven't seen it on Instagram, you probably have no idea what we're talking about.
So most people would look at it and think that it is a cold feed TIG system. It is not. It is a hot feed TIG system. So when the puddle is when the wire is touching the leading edge of the puddle, it's getting voltage feedback and resistance feedback from the wire. So when you pause, increase, decrease voltage, things like that, the wire automatically adjusts to correct whatever action is going right or wrong, to where it always keeps you right in the window of perfection. That's kind of Fronius' thing. Perfect welding, this is just the next iteration of that, and it's the first system that I've picked up, ran, and had flawless quality within, 5 to 10 minutes.
Oh, wow.
They've all got bugaboos.
Yeah.
Once you get a cold feed system, as long as you maintain travel speed and voltage input, they run great, but this one will tackle gaps. We put a piece of pipe tacked tight on one side, a 1/4-inch gap at the other, and just washed a puddle all the way across it.
Oh, neat. So
yeah.
It's adaptive then. It kind of makes up for
it
lack of skill.
It's what every welder needs. It makes you look much better than you are.
So it can make my TIG welds look just as good as Dabs Wellington's TIG welds.
It's gonna level the playing field quite a bit.
Okay, we just got to make sure you don't get it in your hands.
Well, I haven't tried any artwork.
I
haven't tried any artwork yet, but that could double my productivity. I can use both hands now.
Oh, that would. Oh, yeah. Just have a torch in each hand.
And then the new collet system that's on it. I don't know if you've seen that.
I've seen
the
that.
little
So it's
mechanical
like
pencil
the mechanical
idea.
pencil type deal.
And most people don't know that will swap straight from 16th all the way up to 1/8 inch. So swapping through consumables, you can quickly change your tungsten or remove the entire welding head off of the torch. So they think outside of the box.
I got to check this thing out because I don't know if you know this or not, but I'm a certified tungsten dipper.
Uh-huh.
So, like I was telling some of the guys yesterday, like right before I fire up, I just go ahead and just stick the tungsten just to get it out of the way. Yeah, just get it out of the way and then break it off, resharpen it. And then, now that we got that done, I can start welding. But I think it's kind of cool to be able to have that, especially, if you're welding on complex parts, and as well as I do, when you got to get a different stick out, I got to push that tungsten out a little bit further, I got to bring it back depending on joint configuration. It's a lot easier to do that than it is to twist the back cap and, try to get it just so, or switching in between
for an
diameters.
Immediate switch. Yeah. Well, and this one, another thing, when you're in a problem area, it's normally in the heat of the moment.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, well, now I've got to untwist everything. Everything's blazing hot.
Now I got to find my whelpers to
this one
pull
you
the
push it in the
out.
back, it comes out far enough, and you can slowly tap it on the table right to where you want it, to where you don't need to wait for everything to cool down. When you're impatient like me, just one other thing to keep me right back under the hood.
Yeah.
Or if you're dipping constantly, less frequent time spent in between switching, more accumulative hood time.
Yeah, it's not that I don't like sharpening tungsten, it's the fact that I don't like having to get it out. And then, it doesn't want to go back in right.
This will get you right back into that puddle that much quicker.
Now, how does it operate where you can switch between, 332, 1/8 inch, and 1/16?
Well, just like the mechanical pencil, the back of it is swedged, so the further it goes back in there, it still tightens at that same angle, so it just, when you've got an 1/8 in there, the collet sticks out a little further, so you've got a little more on the front side.
And it's a pretty snug fit? It's not, the tungsten's not,
No, you
loose
might,
or anything?
being as it would be spring-loaded, you would be able to pull the tungsten back out. I guess if you dip it and try to retract without wiggling it free, that might be the case. But when you push in on it, mechanically speaking, you're just making it tighter at that point.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. So
the same way a swedge collet would work, it's just spring-loaded as well now.
I got you. What other kind of stuff do they have out here that you've been messing with? Because I know you've been over hanging out here in this booth in your little playground for a couple of days now.
Well, I get to see quite a few of these things before I actually get to put hands on them. So this is my opportunity to watch everything. The magic cleaners that they've got are something that are brand new. That the first time I used it, I completely scorched one of the nylon brushes. So that means it's definitely not skimping on power. And that's, they might be late to the game in that department, but they're incredibly small, incredibly powerful machines. And then really, they've got single sets, TIG welders, MIG welders. The iWave does everything incredibly well. So that's the one thing that I want to make sure that I get as much time spent using when I can do it for free, surrounded by all these wonderful people.
Yeah. Now, what was that machine they had it was on Instagram the other day, and they were playing music through the Arc?
That is the Magic Wave. You could do that with the iWave as well. So that is modulating the pulse frequency to where it's emitting a sound. So the further you get away from the material, increasing the arc length, normally that will make your pulse pop louder. Well, since this is incredibly fast pulses, that increases or decreases the volume. And the first time I used a Fronius machine would have been in Atlanta here, FabTech, 5-6 years ago, whatever. And Justin Merrill had that thing hooked up. Whenever I stepped on the pedal, the Arc started meowing at me. There was a video on YouTube of a bunch of kittens meowing, and I'm like, what is going on? But I mean, they were playing, Guns N' Roses and stuff. It's incredibly crisp and clear. It's hard to believe it comes from an Arc. I don't think there's any tangible real-world things other than just showing off.
Right.
But it's a very neat thing.
How does it weld, though? I mean, does it still weld pretty decent?
I mean, there's a lot of pulsing going on.
You gotta get a specific playlist based on material thickness.
I guess you could have a job-specific playlist.
There we go. So, that'd be brilliant. Instead of using
some
a water
drum and bass
procedure,
techno would make for a very good, consistent pulse tempo.
So instead of using a WPS, you're like, hey, what's the playlist for this weld?
Exactly. This is an Avicii weld.
No, that's pretty cool. So back to this this dynamic wire TIG. How difficult is it to set up? You said it's pretty simple to weld with. What's the learning curve to get everything just so? What do you have to set up?
So
wire
the machine,
feed speed, volts?
The machine takes care of the wire portion of it for you. So you've got to determine the amount of time between when you initiate the arc and then when the wire actually starts. So the thicker material, obviously you're going to want to wash things around and get everything, everybody in the pool together before we start cramming wire on top of it. So we were doing 1/4 inch, if memory serves me correct, had about a 1/2 second, 3/4, and it was working just fine. The only other difference between just running the TIG there is putting it in a different mode. So it's doing all that calculation after that for you. So its startup is pretty easy.
Okay. Now, and I would imagine since it's gas tungsten arc welding, it's not position restricted. So, I mean, you can run this stuff, flat, horizontal, vertical, overhead, open root.
Right-handed, left-handed.
Right-handed, left-handed.
The only thing about it now, with it being mounted there in some position work, it could get cumbersome or in the way. So they've also got something coming out to where you'd be able to actually hold this unit in your left hand to where it would, get rid of anything being in the way, and that would also help inexperienced TIG welders that don't have the consistent feed down yet. So
it's kind of like a automated dab pen.
Narrowing the skills gap, because a lot of people, their dominant hand is great. It's that off hand that throws them so much trouble in the beginning. So that's one other way you can offset that problem.
And it's a continuously fed wire
Yeah, unless you break contact with the leading edge of that puddle, so that would be another benefit to using it freehand, that you could really wash that puddle around, get restarts, reposition by just breaking that contact and then dipping it into that leading edge again.
That's pretty slick.
So that might be how I eventually transition this into the artwork. We'll have to see.
Yeah. So now, I would imagine, can you rotate where that TIG wire is feeding from around the cup?
Oh, 100%. So
it's not just fixed on one side.
They've got a little 3D printed arm that's got indexable points at the back and front for coming in at your pitch and angle. And then it's got, it would have spots at the 12 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 3 o'clock, and 9 o'clock, and I'm pretty sure it would have quarter marks in between each of those as well.
Oh, damn. So it's pretty...
Yeah. So once you wouldn't want to use this in an application where you're switching it multiple times in job, but once you got something you had multiple parts on, this would definitely speed up a production run of something.
Okay. Now, do you have to use their specific torch, or is this something you could add? Like, if you had a favorite torch you want to hook up to a Fronius machine, it's kind of adaptive.
At this point, I do believe it's all Fronius technology, so you would need their onboard system to even get the wheels spinning.
Okay.
So, I'm sure that's partly by design.
Oh, yeah, well, that makes sense. Well, that's really cool, man. I'm looking forward to seeing your demo.
Oh, yeah, hopefully I don't fall flat on my face, but like I said, it's a very adaptive, easy-to-use system, so even a dummy like Dad's can do it.
That's what I've noticed with a lot of Fronius stuff. It's very adaptive, based off the user.
As long as you get used to the user interface, because being Austrian, some of the abbreviation and things are a little bit different, but they have taken that interface and basically gone machine to machine to machine to it, to where once you learn one, you're very comfortable with
pretty much learned them all.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, so
pretty slick.
Once you get the initial switch over with, it's very easy to grasp.
Okay. Well, awesome, man. I look forward to checking out your demo.
Stick around. It won't be long. I'm going to go over there and get warmed up, and hopefully I'm ready to dazzle.
Get that strong hand worked up.
That's right.
Brother.
I'll see you in just a minute.
Yeah. So joining me now is Jason Frederick, Director of Sales and Marketing. Jason, how did you get in with Fronius?
Okay, so this might be a little bit of a long story, but
sorry, we got time.
It's an interesting one. So my background, I went through welding school when I was about 19. I had an apprenticeship whenever I was in high school. We had a kind of a co-op type thing where I actually went and worked with a weld engineer, got to do a little bit of live welding with the local manufacturer, and then knew where I was going from a career perspective. So afterwards, I went to a couple welding schools, worked for a company for about 10 years. So we welded a lot of pressure vessel certs, had ASME certifications for copper, nickel, stainless.
Some of the exotic stuff.
Some of the exotic stuff, yeah. We were a tubing and pipe supplier for John Deere and Caterpillar, so it's like a tier 1, it's a pretty large company. And kind of started there, and then over time, I slipped and fell into the sales side. I worked for an independent welding and gas distributor named Ilmo Products out of Illinois. And one day, after I worked for the company for a few years, I started kind of utilize some of my welding background and some of my management background, and started having to go out and do some weld demos with competitive equipment once. And I got a call from the CWI there, and he says, "Hey, you got to check out this Fronius stuff. This guy named Chris Bliven, they've got some great equipment for aluminum." So I'm like, all right, let's go check it out. So we did a demonstration at a customer with CMT, and it literally was like, if you've ever welded like coped aluminum 16 gauge tubing where it's coped and it kind of meets, kind of like think about a race car frame or something, like not a professional one, but a go-kart or something.
Right.
But and Chris came in and laid a weld that looked like a TIG weld with CMT, and I thought he was manipulating the puddle or something. I'm like, this is not real.
Pulling the mad trick jig.
Yeah. It's like, what the heck, man? So then I turned around, he's like, here, go ahead. And I welded with it. I'm like, what in the world are these machines not all over? And she's like, well, we're still a pretty young company. We've been around in Austria for a long time. And then little did I know, 3-4 months later, he sent me a message and say, hey, we're looking for a sales guy. I was like, well, I've never been a full-time outside sales guy. To be honest, it was a little scary, but at the same time, it's like, well, what do you do? Sit back and just keep doing the same thing, or do you go out on a limb?
Yeah.
You know, I said if I can sell
Take that leap.
anything, I can sell that equipment. I mean, you know, from
Sell
a
something
product
you're believing in.
perspective. Yeah, exactly. And having the welding background, you know, it's a little different than being nothing against car salesmen, but being a typical just salesperson that doesn't really understand the needs and the problems and the pain points that, you know,
That the end user's going
that
through.
the end user goes through, right?
Yeah.
So it's really easy for me to connect to the welder on the floor all the way to the CEO. So when it just kind of slips, so Chris hired me. I worked as an area sales manager for about 3 years. Chris did a little stint at another company for a while, and then I ended up actually taking his old regional manager role, worked through that, and before I knew it, I got offered the position for director of sales and marketing for the U.S. So,
Oh, wow.
so which is challenging and a little bit scary. You know what I mean? But back in the day, I mean, I'm just work.
Yeah, I've got a completely different respect for, you know, like salespeople that have been there and they've
Right.
done that, because you get so many salespeople and like that's their job. That's all they know. They've been.
Exactly.
It's like, what am I selling? Okay, they'll do. You know, they'll read the brochure and then they'll like, you know, go into the shop and they're like, it can do this, 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 and this.
Exactly.
But like, if you have a background, like you have a history of doing this work, like that's how you made a living for 10 years, and then you got into sales. Like I've got a lot more respect for that than, you know, somebody that just used to sell pharmaceuticals and, you know, now they're selling, you know, whatever. I
Exactly.
mean, it makes a huge difference, you know, especially, you know, if you're a business owner
Right.
trying to buy a piece of equipment. I don't want to buy the bullet points off the brochure. I want you to come in here and like show me how this is going to make me money,
Right.
or, you know, when am I going to get my ROI on this?
Well, I think that's what differentiates us at Fronius. We typically don't hire a lot of your
Typical sales guys.
typical sales guys. You know, we look for folks that are, you know, that are in the industry already. Maybe not selling, but maybe they're weld engineers, or, you know, they're at a welding distributor or something. And, you know, and that's the big difference with us, is that our culture is to really look for those type of people to pull in. And, you know, whether it's we train them on the sales side or whatnot. I mean, but that's typically, you know, I could say, I'm going to say probably 80% of our staff has either been the welder out there in the field, welding engineer, degreed welding engineer, or somehow involved in robotics welding in one way, shape, or form. So, yeah, it's a pretty awesome group to work with. So,
Yeah, and you said you've been here, what, 12 years?
Actually, I'll be here 10 years.
Okay,
so
10
this
years.
is my 10th year after January 1st. I'm working on my 10th year. So,
Okay.
you know, the company's really grown substantially. You know, it's funny because I was talking to somebody just a little bit ago about this, and literally 6 years ago, Fronius didn't have a single-phase machine. So, and you look at where we've grown from that time, it's just exponential, you know. So, I mean, in Europe, they use a lot of three-phase for everything, right?
Mhm.
So when the product's manufactured there, you know, they consider single-phase, but they don't necessarily move to it until they see the demand. And a lot of the growth we've had has helped make it to where, you know, the focus has kind of shifted from just that high-end customer, that high-end product, to something that the user in the garage can actually use too. So,
Now, do you guys do like product development for like specifically for the U.S., or do they
Yeah.
do everything over in Austria and then it kind of bleeds over to the U.S. as the U.S. like as our markets start to catch
Yeah.
up to some of that technology, or do you guys doing specific stuff for
That's a great
U.S.
question.
development?
That's a great question. So 10 years ago, no. As of like this year, so we've just actually hired our first strategic product manager for the U.S. market. We're actually for North American market. So Wes will actually, and he's from the U.S. too, so he's actually going to be coordinating with Fronius International product management. So we have a good synergy on products, and basically are bringing in, you know, the needs of the customers in the United States. So that's a really big thing for the company to move in that kind of fashion. So something we're really excited about. You know, at the end of the day, you know, the voice of the customer from the U.S. really comes out, and they get a firsthand us dibs
Yeah.
at the next types of technologies we're looking
So
at.
where you guys getting all your feedback from? Like, what's, how do we meet market demand? Like, where does like a company like find that information out? Because surveys are just unreliable.
Yeah, surveys are.
And then you got so many different markets and customers. How do you figure out like we gotta fill this niche?
So and this kind of goes back to the consultative approach, right? So in the U.S., we have pretty much 3 different channels that we work through. So we have what's called distribution partners, and then we have what's called integrators and OEM partners, and then we have a direct customer base also. And those 3 channels is where that feedback loop really comes, because they're all significantly different, right? So the needs of necessarily, so I can say Chris because he's our manager for that, the needs of a distributor may be a little bit different than what a robotics integrator, right? So and we keep up with those kind of trends and really use those partnerships to use that feedback loop on a pretty regular basis. Because I agree, I mean, you can send a customer survey out, and a lot of times somebody, if they like it, they just connect the dots, but we want real deal feedback.
Yeah, nobody's ever honest on a survey. Very good, excellent,
Exactly.
5 stars.
Exactly.
Got any comments? Nope. Everything's
Exactly.
great. Can't do anything with that.
So we like to try to use, follow-up references too. So after, we close business with the customer, we go back and do an evaluation on, how that went.
Okay.
And understand, hey, how do we make adjustments or suggestions that they have and things of that nature. So having a direct feedback loop now with the product management team is really going to set us apart now. So it's an exciting thing to happen.
Now, are you guys still like direct to consumer as a company, or are you like slowly breaking into distribution?
We're really developing more into that distribution side. There's always going to be customers that are a different level that we need to manage through on a direct end user basis. But at the end of the day, the customer makes the decision, right? So if a customer purchases through us directly or through distribution channels, that's really the customer's decision. But the way it typically goes, and where our growth in the U.S. really is through those distribution channels. I mean, some of these independent distributors that we work with, Eldstar and OSC, these guys have a massive growth with Fronius and are really changing the game. So I see that being the catalyst for growth for us for the most part. And overall, you gotta think about size when you look at like the U.S. market. So our parent company is out of Austria, right? You can literally take Austria and dump it into the corner of Texas.
Yeah.
So we need strong partnerships to really grow throughout the U.S. and that's exactly where that's why I say I see most of that growth in that area. Different markets work and operate in different ways, right? So automotive market's a little bit different. They're more direct to, OEM type customers. General industry tends to be a lot of distribution channels. But some of those markets also cross over too. So it's one of those things that I see where the largest area of growth and future growth is definitely through those partnerships. So.
Okay. Now, where do you guys see yourself in 5 years?
It's a great question. I actually have to do a presentation on this in December. But,
perfect.
Yeah. So, overall, the first thing for me is our individual people. You move into these kind of roles that I'm in now, and it's a lot of learning, especially when you're not you don't have an MBA, right? I mean, sure, my AWS certifications aren't doing squat for me in this job.
Right.
So, but I'm understanding your team. So we're really putting a huge focus on making sure that our team has the tools to be successful out in the field. So to me, the number one thing right off the bat over the next 5 years is really developing our people to the fullest potential, which is important because if they're not there, they can't add the additional value into the customer, right? So internal development is a huge one. That partner program, those programs, extended development with the right companies. We're not interested in just going out and setting up every company that's out there. We're very, very, I want to say semi-exclusive with it because we want to partner with the right people.
Right.
If they don't represent the brand properly, then they're not interested, no matter how big they are.
Mm-hmm.
So those areas I see being big areas. We're probably going to be opening up some new facilities. So right now we have headquarters in Portage, Indiana. We have Chattanooga, Tennessee, Houston, Texas, Brighton, Michigan, which is actually going to be moving into Wixom, Michigan now, and then Riverside, California. Looking like next year we could potentially put a small facility up in Portland, Oregon. So we're really kind of branching out on the West Coast a little bit more. But from a future perspective, we see a lot more potential in some of the central states, and then even into some of the farther south of Tennessee and Chattanooga. There's a lot of growth down in those southern states with automotive customers and whatnot.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, really cool.
Yeah.
Where can people find more information on Fronius?
Obviously, go to the Fronius website. Reach out to us. I think one thing that we're going to be doing a little bit different this year is we're going to be doing a lot more open houses. So we want to invite customers or people that are just interested, and I mean from the home hobbyist all the way to whatever the large scale business is, to kind of invite more of them into our what I call our Fronius homes, but our Fronius offices, and connect with people. I mean, at the end of the day, our motto is customer intimacy. We want to have a true connection with the customer to understand, and that's what we're really all about. And then everything, the product and the features and all that, those come around it. You understand the needs of the customers, and that's the best way for us. So unfortunately, I can't tell you anything better than check out the website. Yeah. But Instagram, we're on Instagram. We're on LinkedIn. We're on Facebook, and we do pretty good with posting on social media. So try to get connected with us in any way, shape, or form. Doesn't matter where you are, who you are. We're happy to talk and see how we can help things out. So.
Well, awesome. I appreciate your time. Thanks for hopping on and sharing all about Fronius.
Awesome. Thanks a lot. I appreciate it, Jason.
Yeah.
Bye.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for tuning into this week's bonus episode. For more information on Fronius, you can head on over to their website, FroniusUSA.com, or you can give them a follow on Instagram at FroniusUSA. Hope you all have an awesome weekend. Be sure to tune in Monday for an all-new episode of the Arc Junkies Podcast. Stay safe out there, and until next time, make every weld better than your last.